'Tis a fine foggy night tonight, and I doubt if anyone has ever told you of the marvelous fogs we have in Aberdeen.
Eugene.
Bakersfield.
Los Angeles.
San Francisco.
He wasn't giving me my props in Oaktown.
Portland.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles de California.
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
You gotta find your Irvine.
Irvine?
Hanford.
Eugene.
Seattle.
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 Sacramento.
Fresno.
We're going to Vancouver.
Modesto, California.
San Diego.
Gina.
You know, there might be an opening for a manager in Visalia next spring.
Yakima, right?
Vallejo, California, the V.
California.
3, 2, 1, and welcome to the West Coast Sojourn Podcast. This is Donnell Alexander.
And I'm Lev Anderson.
And, this week we're going to do something a little bit different in this free podcast episode. We're just kind of catch our breath, talk about some past guests, and inevitably we're going to talk about politics and hoops because that's kind of our defaults. But, let's kind of work our way back. Are you down with that?
Yes, let's do this.
Okay, well, the most recent guest we had was John Yoo. And we did enough talking about who he is and what he represents and, the baggage that having someone like that is on. But I wondered if you had any retrospective thoughts on it or looking at him differently, or looking at the world every day, does this play any different?
Right. Well, it's always a reminder that these people are human, that we kind of create these monsters in our minds. But we log on with him, and I'm like, God, you look like a sweet old Korean man. Like you speak real gently and softly and seem real nice, So it's always a reminder that these are real people that we deal with. They're not just these caricatures of ne'er-do-wells, but and it was just also, it's always a little hard. I think I'm learning this whole podcast thing, getting into the rhythm of conversations, being able to ask the follow-up questions and stuff. So that's always a challenge. I felt like we kind of let him off the hook a little bit, and I think mainly when it comes to his absolute faith in the legal system, it's because, we'd say like, well, what if, Trump is doing this? And he's like, well, the courts will stop him. But I don't know that the courts are going to be able to stop him doing stuff, right? Like, what are their enforcement mechanisms and such? So I feel like we didn't quite get far enough, and that's why I asked him at the end if he would want to come back and do a follow-up, and then we can see where we're at with Trump, I guess, then. But it was interesting, and I appreciated his perspective as a constitutional presidential scholar and all that. But yeah, it's kind of difficult to, nail down some of these ideas.
Right. No, we took our time with him. I definitely feel like we let him off the hook in a relative sense, but I don't think we also, you could rake him over the coals, but he's a really smart guy, no wiggle out of it. But I wanted to say that I've been thinking about his presence more in the past 24 hours because I've been hearing this news about Pete Hegseth sending stuff in the Signal app again, and just the underling who left, his right-hand person, saying, it's been chaos there. And which makes me think, if I were ever going to attack the United States, I'd be doing it now. That country's in disarray. Whether you're talking about like cyber attack or any kind of terrorism, now would be the time. And it makes me think back to like these people like John Yoo who, I've said before, my son's pretty mad at me for having John Yoo on the podcast, is that we need everybody now. It is all hands on deck. People who are discredited or disavowed or whatever you want to call them, marginalized, rightly or wrongly. I think you need everybody in here giving credibility to attacking them. And I think, honestly, this guy needs to be removed. And I think there's a pathway toward that, but something really bad has to happen. That's the other thing I want to talk to you about. I don't want to throw a bunch of stuff at you, but in this moment, especially right now, I realize with the stock market and the economy, you're kind of rooting for the U.S. to fail. It's inherent in being anti-Trump right now. You're saying we want the Canadians to do well. You know, I mean, I don't know if everybody wants China to do amazing, but we're in a weird place.
It is certainly a weird place. I think that I feel like there's less of this sort of, compared to the first Trump term, I feel like there's kind of fewer safety mechanisms in place.
100%.
Because they've been much more aggressive about weeding people out and setting up their style of governance. Pete Hegseth, he totally unqualified for this position, totally inept. He's going to be, I think he'll be gone at some point soon.
And replaced with what? And that's what I'm saying. There's a vulnerability during that period. Even now, you're hearing from the second there, because the first was not the guy. Who knows what the number 3 man is? But he's saying it's mess there now. And so you're replacing Pete Hegseth with what?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know what, because I don't think there's really anybody in the military establishment that Trump trusts. And that's what he's picking people that will serve him, not who's going to serve the country.
Yeah.
And so, that's a short list of people, and they're not probably government career people, right? They're probably not career officers like Hegseth. Like he was in the Army for like 5 years or something. I don't know what his whole deal is, but he was never a commanding officer. He was never anybody high enough up with a rank that anybody takes seriously. I don't know.
He's not a manager.
Yeah, I don't know what Trump's bullpen looks like, because his starters are definitely kind of frightening.
His bullpen looks like Weekend at Fox News,
I mean, it's funny how he picks these people that are good on TV.
Well, no, it's not. It's not a coincidence. What it is
right.
Like they're it's artifice. It's all facade. My favorite indictment of Trump, and I don't know if you ever saw this, but it's part of a book from a reporter at the New York Times, but they went into make The Apprentice, NBC did, and it was all so ratty and unusable that they had to just recreate it, because that facade of glamour was paper fucking thin, man. And it's just, all his business are ratty and half-assed, and so this is ratty half-assed nation. With fucking, it reminds me.
I mean, he's definitely.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. It reminds you of what?
Oh well, in Hollywood, you've been on film sets, and the facades they look real, they look great, and you can just push it over, and there's nothing behind it. That's the administration, and in a way, we're lucky because they can't enact their things because they can't get out of their own way. They're sending Harvard these half-assed documents that aren't even approved, and so fucking up their really egregious aspirations, these terrible things they want to do. They're so, I almost used the R word, didn't I? You know what I'm going to, because that's the kind of man I am. The ideas are so retarded, in essence, not the people, but the ideas are retarded that they can't, it's keeping them from succeeding. We're so lucky they're so dumb.
Yeah, and that's how I felt at the first term, and I still feel that way, I guess. But they're being more aggressively dumb. I feel like.
I was gonna say, don't you feel like the floor is lower this time?
Yeah, and the risks and the stakes seem higher. Because you're dealing with aggressive Russians and Chinese and all that. But yeah, I don't know. He's definitely making the country weaker. That's all I can say, is that we're weaker. You carve out these holes in these big agencies. Sure, you might save some money and stuff, but it's going to just make everything function less effectively. And I think we are, this is the prime time for cyber attack, but just wait 6 months from now, it might be even better. The fact too is that I think I saw something today too, that I get the most worried when they start fucking with the voting system. And so now when they start messing with the voting system, right? Because that's the way they're going to stay in power, is if they screw up the voting thing. And so I think I saw some headline this morning that they're talking about all the states and local people are going to be in charge of their own cybersecurity when it comes to election stuff. which does not seem like a great way to do it, because why sideline all these federal resources you have of experts that know what they're doing? But yeah, it's all about MAWA, Make America Weak Again.
Mm.
I'm not really sure the way out of it. I would like to note that, before we talked about all the protests and everything, and I suggested that they don't really do anything because Trump isn't paying attention. It's not going to change his mind. But what they do is they build up solidarity amongst all of us. It builds community. It makes people stand together stronger. So when shit really goes down, we have a better sense of community, a better sense of solidarity to kind of see our way through difficult things that may be coming down the pipeline. So in that sense, they're valuable. And I felt bad for like kind of downplaying that before in the conversation we had a couple weeks ago. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know what his bullpen is like.
I want to shift to another guest because I don't want Trump running over our whole thing. And we want to put a button on John Yoo, but I have to make this last little annoying revelation with you. I have to share it with you. The wine industry in California is taking such a hit. They say it's going to it'll take a year to recover from it. And some places, some wineries may never come back. This is like less than a month out from this economic hit. Anything you're seeing up there in terms of? I mean,
I've heard concerns about the wine industry. There's
what about tourism?
Oh, tourism. I haven't heard anything specifically around Portland or Oregon necessary for tourism, but I think the broader, I don't remember the number, but it was like billions of dollars lost to tourism because people being like, well, I don't know if it's safe to go to the U.S. Are they just going to put me back on a plane, or are they going to, we don't want to give them business because of the way they're behaving. Trump can't think about all this stuff. It's too much stuff to fit in his brain and his calculus.
He's one man. Obviously, I think there's a problem with our media system, so people don't know what's really happening. But I think it is about us, and not just us, but our representatives, because Trump's one guy. And I think one of the things John Yoo, we put that button on John Yoo, is that Congress is AWOL. And if you could make Congress act in any way, you saw Lisa Murkowski, the senator, talking about how she's afraid. And maybe that's a breaking point where someone actually can say it out loud. But they're being held hostage, And I think if there was some sort of lock there, you may see a change. Because you talk about 4 years of this. 4 years of this cannot go on. We can't do 4 more months of this. So breaks have to happen. And we tend to look at these things as either or, like Trump, like it's a binary choice. You just have to slow that fucking train. That's what's got to happen. And people in the streets do that. That makes an impression on people. Those town halls with Chuck Grassley getting clowned, that makes a difference,
Yeah, but I feel like I just feel like that the Republican congressional caucuses, that group of people, they haven't been able to legislate anything. They don't legislate anything.
You cannot write.
You can't write them off, but I'm not counting on them. I don't know to do anything really. I think also it's that they just so much want to stay in power and they think that clinging to Trump is the way to do that because that's their base. But I don't know, and I know that they're getting the feedback from communities. But until like the midterms, I just don't see them really standing up to him in any sort of serious way. I just don't.
I'm just saying. We can move on, but we don't make it to midterms. It's not sustainable. It's just not. We haven't even had like a basic catastrophe where we've asked on the federal government to respond. It's inevitable that that's going to happen. It's a shit show, I think there has to be congressional movement, or I don't know what the worst of it is, aside from the inevitable recession becoming an inevitable depression. But it just can't go on like this. And I think the people who care about money, that was something from the John Yoo thing. We want to put a button on it. I think that the people, once you start fucking with money, then you can see some change in this man. Just taking apart the university system is such a fucking devaluation. That's the last thing I want to ask you. To get off John Yoo, you're a Cal guy in the sense that your parents were there, your spouse is from there, right? Did you feel an obligation to do you feel like you did Cal right in your performance there?
Well, Cal's employed him for a long time. I don't know. I think, haven't they employed him for a long time? You.
Oh, I misheard you. Please go on.
Oh, I thought, yeah. I mean, these big universities, they have their own agendas, a lot of them, I think. I think it's a shame to pull all the money out of them, but I think Harvard did the right thing in standing up. I think if they just, I don't know why Columbia capitulated so quickly, but if they just, keep saying, no, we're not going to do this.
That happens on podcasts.
Yeah.
Can I say one thing though about Harvard, Columbia? Your point about Columbia?
Yeah.
New York fucking made Trump, and that's the whole thing. They coddled Trump from the beginning. So I'm not surprised that the big Ivy League university in Manhattan did it, because it's par for the fucking course. When the history books detangle this stuff, the city of New York has got a lot of explaining to do. But
Right. Yeah. Going back to Alvin Bragg and some of these other people that could have prosecuted him a while ago and held back.
Yeah. It's great that they've reacted so strongly, but in the 80s and 90s, and I know I talk about this to death where Trump's concerned, he could have been put out a long time ago, and they thought the Roy Cohn thing was kid. People played pity pat, or what do you call it? Pity pat with people who were just awful, and maybe that's just the way of business. Can I ask you about another guest?
Yeah, please.
Sophia Sky. What did you think of her?
Mm-hmm. Sophia seems great. I mean, I think what she's doing is, kind of important in terms of, sexual identity, gender relations, some of this stuff. I mean, it seems like, what she's doing is popular too, right? There's a market for all that stuff. So if it's feeding people's curiosities and everything, that seems like a good thing.
I thought it was especially interesting that she didn't seem very concerned about any kind of funding limitations because of the government's new interest in that sort of thing, because private citizens support it. I thought that was really interesting. You know what I thought? As a parent, I was surprised to see myself thinking this, but the more I know Sophia, the more I think that stuff is important. Not just the more I know Sophia, the more I see the way the world is going with sex. I think it's a great thing, because I actually thought, I wish my children could go to that festival. I thought that, which is not something you would think ordinarily about, like, kids and sex, but I just think, like, the issues of obviously gender and sexuality that are on the table these days, and people are asking questions of themselves, but consent, because the whole choking thing we were talking about, it's just like people are running around with a lot of ideas that we didn't have when we were kids, about sex.
The internet porn and that influence on everybody. I think, I mean, more information, more dialogue, the better about anything, really. And it applies as much to sex as anything else. So, it's just about us being adults and understanding some of these issues and the minutia that goes into it, the nuances, and not just, rejecting everything because, we're not the fucking Catholic Church or whatever, like we're not. Rest in peace, Pope Francis.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you got anything to say about Pope? Because he's the Pope. You must have some cultural observation. I know you don't observe.
Right. Well, I mean, he seemed like a decent guy for a Pope, right? Like, I mean, his stances on some issues were a bit more moderate than others. I just don't really
I didn't say fuck the Pope one time in his life.
Right. He didn't seem...
well, in his term. In his life, I've said fuck the Pope, but I just mean in his term.
Yeah. I don't really understand Catholicism and the sway it has over 1 billion people or whatever on this planet, especially after all the priest sexual abuse issues. Like, it's like, why do we hold these people up through these standards when they can't seem to deal with these issues that seem pretty endemic to their structure. It's not something I follow. I can't say that they've done better stuff about abusive clergy or whatever. But in terms of a world leader, like he talked about climate change, which is the number one issue for me usually. He I don't think he said it was okay to be gay, but he was also more friendly towards the gay community than most popes are, right? So I don't know. It's too bad he's passed, but also, I don't know what difference it's going to make in the world for us,
No, it's purely symbolic. I was married to a woman who was raised in Catholicism. She wasn't observing or anything, but she when I go back to Indiana with my in-laws, I'd go to mass. I'd go to midnight mass, and I got it. It was very modern kind of church, so it wasn't like heavily ritualistic. They had electric bass in the choir, but I'm writing this movie that happens in at the end of the Dark Ages, and Catholicism is a really big part of it. So I've been immersed in the origins of Catholicism more than I have. I've never thought about Catholicism as deeply as I have in the past 4 months. And I know how ritual endures, and how people are capable of change, but change happens over a long period of time, And even the people I know who are lapsed Catholic or lapsed Jews, you go back to it, especially as you get to the end of your life. I think you go back to these things. So I would never, I guess I'm proud to say I understand Catholicism enough that I appreciate the difference between a pope who's harmful and one who isn't. And that's probably all I have to say about that. That I don't know how we got there away from Sophia Sky. But the event, the event's 2 weeks from now. If I can go, I will, because it's always fun. But I may not. I should move on to the next guest. The next guest topic, I should say. And the topic, let me combine them, because Lauren Yoshinko writes about weed, and Chef Maverick, another recent guest who's from the cannabis world, cooks with weed. What did you think of those two women?
Oh, they seemed great. Chef Maverick, I really want her to succeed. She seems like she really puts in the work and really knows what she's doing. And I have yet to sample any of her product, but it all sounds, great. And I just hope that she gets the success that she deserves with her work. I thought it was interesting the difference in operating between Georgia and California. That's not a difficult contrast to make, maybe, but for somebody that's so keyed into the industry like that, it's pretty. It's always interesting to hear what they say, and Lauren too. I find it's interesting to me that marijuana is so widely consumed, and yet there's very little discussion on the politics, the commerce of it, and I don't know if it's, and the legal issues around it, and, you just don't see that conversation except from people like Lauren. That's kind of this, I don't want to say underground media, but like kind of this alternative media that you don't hear any of it in the mainstream media in terms of what some of the legal issues these people are doing, or the economics of it, and I just chalk that up to American, pseudo Puritanism or whatever. But it's good that these people are out there working on these issues and trying to communicate everything that's going on.
Yeah, a lot of our followers, the West Coast Sojourn followers, come from the Weed Week world, where we talk about things a little more the issue's a little more in depth. And in fact, the John Yoo episode was part of the last Weed Week newsletter. It went out there amongst those people. But I think it's culturally impactful, but at this point, monetarily, it's not hugely impactful. And, you know what I mean? It's not an enormous part of it can be. I think if you were ever to get the unlicensed market in check, you know, that it would be this much more significant thing. But, you know, it's so, what's the word, captive to what happens in D.C., you know. For example, Scott's Miracle Grow, which has spent like the last 7 or 8 years deeply, deeply involved with cannabis. Last week they announced they're stepping back from it, and that was really surprising. But I think of that as kind of a bellwether, you know, for where the industry is going. And I see that the DEA is starting to complain a little bit about the levels of THC in cannabis. Are they going to come down on the levels of it? It's a time where, you know, there's success. Yesterday was a big 420 event, but at the same time, you know, do you know Hippie Hill in San Francisco?
Oh, right. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Big 420 celebration, like institution was canceled because the permits weren't ready. Now, before legalization, you just did it. You weren't looking for any fucking permits, man. And it's just like, that is the embodiment of this understanding that it would have been better if we never did legalization. I don't know if everyone feels that way, but it's a thing that people think about and talk about.
I don't know. Weed's cheaper here. It's like it works pretty well up here. I mean, weed is cheap up here. It's way cheaper and easy to get.
And you don't have a huge unlicensed market, unless you count all the weed that's inevitably going out of state.
That's what Idaho complains about, right? Is all the weed coming in from Oregon. But Oregon's been probably sending out the weed forever, exporting it forever. There's always been an export surplus.
California. California. We feed the world.
Right. It's a funny industry, you know. Like, it's a plant that's so easy to grow, and so you know, once you kind of open up the bag, you know, people are going to find all sorts of ways to get it out there.
Yeah. Anyway, I think what's interesting is they're both at the top of their game. There are a few cannabis journalists I think have maybe bigger reputations than Lauren, but you know, she's in Oregon. It's hard to have a huge reputation. Her Substack is popular. I know that much. We shouldn't have these people struggling. And a great chef like Maverick. I want to say though, her 420 celebration. I saw some of it on Instagram yesterday. And she does it down home. I mean, this was like a weed celebration in the hood in Atlanta, you know, and it was good to see. I mean, because I go to a lot of events, and you're like, who are these weed people? They aren't the weed people I grew up with, which is fine, but it gets to be a little elite, you know.
Yeah, right.
Is that all? Well, we had you on, right? You were a podcast guest
on Weed Week.
Yeah, no, on West Coast Sojourn.
Oh, right. I think I was. Yeah.
That's what you were bringing to the table before you made the great introduction that keeps people coming back. It's so sticky, man. Did you intend that?
Well, I like to make things a little catchy and you know, have a good flow to them. It's the trick of editing, right? Like it's fun to do stuff. I like pairing up music with clips of found footage stuff. It's fun to do. You know?
Well, it's almost like they're in dialogue with each other, the characters at a certain point.
Right. You know, the whole key with so much of the stuff is editing, right? It's the edits. It's the choices you make. Like, okay, do I want the Kevin Costner Visalia thing at the end, or do you want it in the middle? Or, you know, like how they play off each other. You know, that's the fun of making films. A lot of times is the editing. You know, because you have all this stuff, and
you search by city, right?
Yeah.
Did you have a hard time finding one for Visalia?
No, there just weren't that many choices.
That's what I'm saying. That's a good.
Yeah.
And then I was even thinking there's a Hanford reference. I thought maybe he's saying someone's name like Hanford Dixon of the Cleveland Browns or something.
Well, that was from the Oppenheimer, right? So they were trying to, where they had to make their uranium or whatever, and Hanford was one of those.
So wait, is that Hanford, Washington?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was thinking Hanford, California.
Oh, well, when you said Hanford, I only think of the leaking radioactive facility that's just like 50 miles from here.
Yeah. Hanford, California.
It's still leaking.
That's insane. Yeah.
I don't know anything about Hanford, California. Sorry.
First journalism job and birthplace of Steve Perry.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we built the city. What's the song? The Giants song? I can't even remember. I'm such a Dodger fan. I can't remember the Giants song. What do they sing? They sing the Steve Perry song. I don't know. Giants fans are saying it right now. They sing. What's the? What the Giants sing? They sing.
Yeah, at the games. You mean like?
Yeah. I don't. It's a Journey song. Well, that's how much we don't give a shit about the Giants on this podcast.
Hey, I like the Giants. I'm kind of
prove it. Say the song they sing.
I'm a fair weather Giants fan. Okay, I pay attention when they're good. I don't pay attention when they're bad.
When they had that huge run, the Lincecum era, and what was the fat boy Pablo?
Sandoval,
yeah. They sang the song interminably, and they were an endearing team. I don't like the Giants, but right. I love a good team, and they were a great team. And I can't remember the name of the Journey song that they sang. Anyway,
I'm not a big Journey expert, so I couldn't tell you.
No, it's not. You don't. I'm telling you, it's entwined with those fucking Giants, and the point is, Steve Perry's from Hanford, people.
That's funny. But, my thing, too, is, that whole run happened after I moved.
Oh, that's
back down to Southern California. So I feel like although I enjoyed it on television stuff, I didn't feel as much a part of it as other Giants fans.
Okay. Giants Journey song, Don't Stop Fucking Believing.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
what a great song.
No, it's a great naivete anthem, and you had to be naive. You want to really be naive. Root for the Giants now. They're like, you ever hear the expression 4A? It's like a AAA player who's not quite a major league. The Giants are a 4A franchise right now, and this is probably as good a time as any to start talking hoops.
Yeah, or 4A, really? Well, geez. Let's talk a little bit of Austin Reeves and how overrated he is by Laker fans.
Yeah, no. I know you wanted to do that. You want to talk shit about Austin Reeves. I'm the biggest Austin Reeves fan there is. But I also think
I think the reason why you're an Austin Reeves fan is because everybody's been looking for, somebody to help LeBron out. And that this was the great white hope that showed up out of nowhere and everyone's like, God, how great is he? And, I've made this comparison before to Danny Ainge, which you object to. And Danny Ainge was a great fucking player. He was a 2-time All-Star, 2-time NBA champ. He was key to those Celtics teams. He was key to the Blazer team that went in 90, 91. He was off the bench as the sixth man, And so when you object to this comparison, I feel like you're disrespecting Danny Ainge. But I even went so far as to do a stat comparison. and let me tell you something. Okay, we'll start. Okay, Austin Reeves had a career high of 45. Danny Ainge's career high is 45, which he got twice. They have very similar numbers. Field goal percentage. Danny Ainge, 469. Austin Reeves, 481. 3-point percentage. Danny Ainge, 378. Austin Reeves, 370.
Wow.
Ainge is slightly only, Ainge's free throw percentage, 846 to 863. Points per game, they're really close. Rebounds per game, 4.3, 4.5. Assists per game, 6.2. Danny Ainge, Austin Reeves, 5.8. Steals per game, Danny Ainge 1.6, Austin Reeves 1.1. Blocks per game, 0.2, 0.3. Like these are very consistent numbers.
This is where numbers lie. I mean, they're comps that make sense. The first one is that they're white. Secondly, those numbers make all the sense. The only qualifier I'll make is that Austin's taking more threes, so his percentage looks different from Ainge. They shot the same percentage, but Ainge shot fewer threes. Here's the thing. The comp for me with Ainge is also a white guy, but it's Pete Maravich. If you watch him, he has way more offensive game than Ainge has. And he's I don't want to say half a defensive player, but Austin Reeves isn't a very good defensive player, where Danny Ainge was a menace, you know?
Ainge had an offensive game.
Yeah, it's a different kind of game. Like, when you watch Reeves, he does so much head fakes and ball fakes and moves and all that because he doesn't have. Danny Ainge was drafted like high in the baseball by the Toronto Blue Jays. He was a high draft pick. Austin Reeves is not a great athlete. He's just a good basketball player. What I like about the Lakers right now, and I think it's not going to work, I think they're going to lose this series, is they're the smartest team I've ever seen. When you have Luka, LeBron, and Austin out there, you have three people who can see the openings. Because Austin doesn't have a lot of great physicality. It's predicated on LeBron's success, and LeBron sucked the other night, so Austin didn't have anything. And so in a way, I think they're only good. They have to have the specific window of 2 or 3 days off. If they have 4 days off, LeBron's too old.
Watch out.
And if they have back-to-back, LeBron's too old. but luckily, there are no more back-to-backs. And I think they can maybe push this to a 7-game series, but that athleticism deficit, I think, is going to cause them to lose. You know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I only tease it because, LeBron has needed help and Austin Reeves was seen as part of that help, but, he's a smart player. I'm not trying to dog on Austin Reeves.
Yeah.
I think they are going to have some trouble in this series, and but at the same time, I don't necessarily trust Minnesota to close it out necessarily either. And I think LeBron is probably the smartest active NBA player around.
You should see him.
Definitely.
They do this thing now because he's like a linebacker on defense, and he's calling all this stuff out. They play him at center, right? And he calls out so much. But the thing is, he's only 6'8", and they're going to struggle like that. I want to run someone by you just because I came across this crazy stat about Ty Jerome. Are you familiar with Ty Jerome?
I was after watching the Cleveland Cavaliers game the other day.
Well, for people who don't know, Ty Jerome, he's from Virginia. He's a white dude whose name is Ty fucking Jerome. Tyrone Jerome. Okay, dude. You should be in the NBA. But the thing about Ty Jerome is that he set the stat. He had this huge game yesterday. Plays for Cleveland, who I think we may see in the finals against OKC. Who do you have in the finals, by the way?
I think Boston gets in over Cleveland. As far as the West goes, it could be OKC. I'm not really sure.
OKC.
The West is much harder to get a handle on, I think. But I think Boston, their experience. Cleveland looked great. Like Cleveland looks really good, but I don't know. I think I'd give the edge to Boston.
Okay.
In the 7-game series.
Let me tell you about Ty Jerome. 28 points. Most points off the bench in a playoff debut. 5th highest point total ever. 4th highest, I don't know if you saw my notes, Billy Ray Bates. Do you remember Billy Ray Bates?
Of course I remember Billy Ray Bates.
Well, hold on for a second. Before you give your description, let me tell, because I have I know him like you know Austin Reeves. I have an outline of him and an idea, because I thought he was like one of the looked the part Hall of Famers. He looked great, and he could do great stuff. What the fuck ever happened to Billy Ray Bates? Portland Trailblazer.
I'm not really sure if I remember. I want to say he had a drug habit, but I'm not positive.
Well, what was his game like? What do you remember?
Well, he was just a high-flying dude that could get on a hot streak. He was kind of like like a J.R. Ryder. No, J.R. Ryder was probably more skilled. Billy Ray Bates was a super athletic, high-flying dude. He came out of, the Philippines or something? Like he played in the Philippine Basketball League and the Blazers found him.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I'm not positive. Or he went to play in the Philippines after his stint with the Blazers. But he was just kind of he was kind of flash in the pan, super athletic dude that people got excited about, but I don't know that he had, a much of the fundamental skills or self-control to really become a great player. You have to have that kind of dedication and ethic. And I don't think he had that. But for a while, for like 2 years or something, he was like everybody's favorite Blazer.
Yeah.
Because some of his dunks and everything else, he was just flying all over the court. And that's how he was kind of known. But I think there wasn't much to his game other than that,
Mm-hmm. I went to the McDonald's All-Star Game in 1998. And I saw, it was so many people, like, from Matt Barnes. There were just a bunch of people who made the NBA. I think everybody basically made that team. Al Harrington, all those guys. But there was this guy named Corleone Young who was insanely talented. Corleone with a K. Corleone from The Godfather. This was his mom named him, Corleone Young. And I thought he was, because I didn't understand that thing you're talking about, all the level of discipline. That all these guys are super talented, and the difference between sticking for 10 years and not at all is your habits in your head, Because I was enthralled. I was 1990. It was 1980 when Billy Ray Bates scored 29. Oh my God, that was the record for like 20 years or for 15 years. Excuse me, for 25 years, Billy Ray Bates, 29 points off the bench, was the record. It's held currently by Malink Monk. But he was so visually enthralling that I thought he was going to be the greatest player of all time. That's like my favorite thing about fantasy sports is it does that thing you just did with Austin Reeves, is it strips style away to the numbers, and your eyes lie to you. When you watch a spectacular player or a spectacular dunk, you elevate that person beyond what they're supposed to be. But did you get caught up in Billy Ray Bates fever? Did you think he was going to be great?
I don't know. 1980. I was 6 years old. I remember watching him, and I remember being entertained. But I don't think I had any concept of what kind of greatness he could achieve or anything. Mm. And I don't think people were that broken up when I think he got traded. I don't know if he got traded or
he
if they just
flamed out really fast. He was a flash in the pan.
He might have had some. I think he had some injuries too, but I think he went to the Philippines afterwards and dominated the Philippines league. That's all you would hear about him. I don't know. I think of current Blazers too, right? So maybe a comp would be again somebody more skilled is Shaedon Sharpe. Because he's a high-flying dude, right? He had 4 of the 5 highest verticals in the league for dunks. He got up over 40 inches on multiple dunks. And so he's kind of the spectacular. He literally looks good, but he doesn't really have a real. He's getting a little bit better, but the thing is at certain moments, I'll swear to God, he looks like Kobe Bryant. He's got real good balance. He's got this low center of gravity. He's got really strong legs, so he can do these turnaround jumpers. He hit this turnaround baseline when he was a rookie, that turning to the opposite shoulder, and it was such a nice move. It was Kobe Bryant was the only person I thought of that it looked like. But does he have that ethic? Does he have that? He doesn't have the Black Mamba mentality. So I don't know that he's ever going to be great. He might average 20 points a game, but is he really going to take the Blazers to the next level? I don't know, because at certain points he just looks checked out. Just stand in the corner and.
Do you believe? Do you believe we're in that era where someone can take a team somewhere? I was thinking about your guy Tamani, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on spectator teams, but
spectator teams, yes.
Can one guy carry it? I don't even believe in the big 3 anymore. I think that's bullshit. I think you've got to have 7 dudes.
Yeah, no, I think we're moving a little bit away from that superstar model, and you just need to have depth and length and people that can play defense. So I don't know. I think we are kind of moving away from that, but then we get reminded every time the playoffs come around, right? When you have these kind of transcendent talents that are the ones that are able to close out games. Close games and physical games, or they kind of have that will the team to win, even if they shouldn't. So I think that still does exist a little bit, but I think you're right. Like, I think the big three notion is kind of going away, and a lot of that's just the economics of it too, probably. But like, you look at a team like Phoenix, right? Like, they just flamed out, and they had like three potential Hall of Fame. I mean, I don't know if Bradley Beal's
I just think like the people who are rounding out your rotation, and because you mentioned Boston and even Cleveland, they have depth. The Warriors, I love the Warriors because they're 7, they're 8, can match up with anybody. There's another guest, if you don't mind me moving on. I want to talk about.
Well, I want to get back before we move off of basketball real quick. You had mentioned something about Kuminga that you wanted to talk about Kuminga.
Oh, Jonathan Kuminga, that's great because you were talking about contracts and they need him. The Warriors need Jonathan Kuminga, and he's not playing. I don't know. Did he play last night? Did you watch it? That they had that huge run. I think I was told he's going to be sitting against Houston, but. This, you talk about your 20-point-a-game scorers. He's that guy, but he's kind of duplicative with Jimmy buckets in the mix, and they've been losing and sitting him. I think it's really interesting. Do you have any idea what they should be doing with this guy? They have a lot of depth, but they have this resource that they're giving DNP.
I mean, I when you had mentioned him, I looked up a little bit to see what was going on, but I mean, Jonathan Kuminga is another guy. So I think that the Warriors and the Lakers, because they've had such success in recent years, championship success and stuff, and the Blazer fans do this all the time, cling on to kind of a marginal role player and really invest in them, right? But like, I mean, Austin Reeves is a little more central than Kuminga is with the Warriors, but the guy's been with them for years, and people keep waiting for him to bust out and really help this team, and I don't think it's really happening. I think Steve Kerr is probably just like, I got Jimmy Butler now. I don't need this guy. Whatever it is, he's in Steve Kerr's doghouse because he's not getting any minutes, right? Yeah. So, I think it's just that everybody really wanted Kuminga because they see that he could be this valuable piece, but it's just not there. Some of these players just don't have it, and I don't know if it's, he doesn't fit what the Warriors want from him or something, and so there's just this schematic talent mismatch or something, or it's just that he's not even that good. I don't know. It could be that it's just not that good. I mean, he's definitely not as good as Jimmy Butler.
Well, the question of whether he's a superstar or anything, I'm not trying to answer that, but they lost to the Clippers in a really important game, the last game of the season, and he sat. Gary Payton Jr. and I forget the other guy, Moses Moody. They combined for like 5 points in 42 minutes. And you're like, that guy's not going to give you that much out there? Then at the end of the game, there was a thigh contusion on Jimmy Butler. And he was limping for like the last 90 seconds of the game. You can't put Moody in there? How deep in the doghouse is this dude? They had to do a play-in game.
Well, they said, I looked up this thing too. It's like since Butler came, his minutes went down. And then it was like, he wouldn't even come to the bench until after the game started. Like, there's definitely some issues going on between him and Kerr that go beyond just like playing time. I think there's definitely some rift.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go to the other guest before we wrap it up here. Why am I blanking on the name? Our guest, Dan
Epstein. Yeah.
Dan Epstein. Yeah. I feel like, for whatever reason, I felt like you guys were the closest harmonically. You guys are from kind of the same place in terms of your love of music, no?
Yeah, I thought Dan was great. He had some good stories, and he seems enthusiastic about kind of these unsung talents in the music world that, Fishbone definitely kind of fell into that category. But yeah, I thought that was a fun conversation. I didn't re-listen to it or anything, so I can't pick out anything specific. But
Well, I thought it was interesting because, I mean, there's been this progression. My colleague Ernest Hardy has showed me that Pikachu has begun showing up at protests. I'm not sure what I can tell you about that, except that I don't know why Pikachu is. Pikachu first appeared as a protest symbol in Antalya, Turkey on March 27th, 2025 during an anti-Erdogan protest against the arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem Amugalo. A protester in an inflatable Pikachu costume was seen fleeing the police, going viral, and making the earliest known instance of Pikachu in protest. So it's happening. Let's see if I can see the video here. There's a video of the Pikachu protest.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to see this. I'm sorry. Oh, wait, maybe you will. Maybe you'll be able to see this. Pikachu protest. All right, that's the world we live in now. Should I pause this? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the thing about Dan, I'd forgotten. I didn't know that he'd written so much. I'd only known the baseball books, but he had a bunch of culture books out there, and it's always cool to get your people who don't know each other together because you get a sense of who might like each other, but maybe not, and yeah, it's kind of a cool thing. We've got so many interesting guests lined up. Excuse me, I'm just burping like a old man who's had probably too much soda. Listen, what kind of guests do you think we need to be having? Are there any needs that aren't being served? Do we need to get more Seattle people?
Well, I think we're starting to get some momentum, and I think hopefully we'll get Catherine from UC Irvine in here. We'll get to check in with the Latinx community. I think we got to figure that out, right, to see how they're coping with the Trump stuff.
Yeah, I just thought of someone, because, one of our guests was saying, one of our upcoming guests was saying, I'm not sure I fit in your audience. And I was like, interesting. Who is our audience?
Yeah.
It's based on, I look at who clicks on it, and there's obviously a lot of weed people who watch. But I think I told you before, there's not that many people from Oregon. I thought like a lot of our people were from Oregon,
Well, we're working on it.
Okay.
I think we've got sort of a, I think we've got sort of a general, we're very generalized in terms of our content. I mean, there's obviously a little bit of the weed focused, and there's a little bit of music in there and sports between you and I. And I guess, we have some sports writers that are in the queue.
Yeah.
So I think we have a pretty general approach. I hope that, people are, getting enough out of it for their specific interests, because that's always the risk, I guess, of too generalized of a
Yeah, it's
format
definitely a show that's a hang. I was telling this to this prospective guest that it's not so much what you're talking about, but it's definitely a vibe. We like people who tell interesting stories and put them on the podcast. What about Ngaio? We forgot Ngaio. Ngaio was one of the very first guests. You liked him, right?
I like Ngaio, yeah, and I follow him on Instagram now. He posts funny stuff on his travels throughout, when he was in Europe and everything else. So,
Ngaio Bellum, one of the one of the Northern California emissaries of weed. He goes all over the world. I think the first one he was on when I was just doing it as a Q&A and not an actual podcast. I did one with him early, but it pops a lot better when it's the bunch of us. You know, I was also thinking I don't want to do all the sort of intra-show dynamic analysis. We don't need to have our exam broadcast, but I was thinking, like, what do you think about having multiple guests on?
I'm okay with it. We can have like kind of a round table. It might make it more fun. I personally feel like I'm still kind of getting in the rhythm of the whole podcasting in general, in terms of knowing when I can jump in, knowing when to hold back, keeping my thoughts focused, you know. So, but I don't know that it would matter if it was, you know, more people. But I think
it is.
I'm game. I'm game, man. I'm game for whatever topics. You know, whoever wants to come on and can get with it, I'm cool with it. You know, like I like people. I like hearing about stuff I don't know anything about. I like digging into things that I do know a lot about. But I love meeting all these people you've been bringing. I think you've got a good roster of friends and connections and interests. So I've been enjoying it thus far, and I'm looking forward to it getting bigger and better and bringing in more people. It's cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
No, I think you're gonna catch the hang of it. I guess the more we do it, going back to the original question about having a 3-4 person show, is that you kind of have to jump on. It's almost like, remember when you were a kid? I don't know if you're even that old, but they used to have the merry-go-round on the playground, the one where you had to grab on.
Right.
It was completely a hazard. You don't see them anymore.
And I mean, it's fine if I miss my rotation, because a lot of these people are more interesting than me. So I learn a lot too. And hopefully I don't look like a silent idiot.
No, it's been great. I think it's going to get better. We'll check in, but hopefully we can drop another one soon. I know I'm gonna be on the road soon, and I'm gonna pick up some people in Northern California. Maybe we can do some where you're in Portland and I'm with someone, and it's just gonna be a lot of variety, and we love variety. Anyway, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
You can edit this out. I don't know what to add. I mean, should we start like a countdown clock for Pete Hagstaff?
Oh man, that would be good. I don't know, man. He might be gone before I get this thing edited, man. Because I think he's going to be the first. The first person that you can say it's a loss, because they can lie away and say the Supreme Court 9-0 decision went their way. But when Pete doesn't come to work anymore, you can't deny it. It's a loss.
Right.
Maybe we should have a clock, but I don't think he's going to make it. Let's say goodbye.
Okay. Goodbye for now.
Peace. We'll see you next time.
All right.
All right. So.